We called a special meeting to kind of go over some of our building inventory. Ray's been working on some basic information so that we could inform the supervisors better on our buildings and the conditions and what we need to look at budgeting for in the future. So, Ray, you can take it away from there.
Great. Thank you very much. So good afternoon, everyone, on a nice rainy day, so it's not so bad being inside. So my apologies for the presentation. We're trying to work through some technical items here. So you may, on some of the presentation slides, you may see some other animations that are not necessarily applicable because it shows as it's being constructed when I was preparing the slides. But hopefully everyone will get an understanding. So I thought it would be important or a good place to start, which is really starting with the background. Obviously, as the county understands, the county has many existing buildings and facilities, and over time they have continued to age, and we need to start looking at keeping up with the improvements and making sure that they're in good working order. So in order to start this, and as we've been contemplating something with the Office of the Aging as far as the kitchen facility, I know some supervisors had indicated a request to take a look at all of the buildings. So I thought it would be interesting to start with an overview just to make sure all the supervisors actually recognize and realize how many facilities the county owns. So I'm going to start the presentation with an overview of the existing buildings and facilities, talk about some of the past actions that the county has undertaken as far as building condition surveys on several of the buildings, take a look at some cost comparison that were described and provided in those condition surveys, and then generally talk about some next steps to consider as the county as a whole. Right. Okay, Kelly. So Columbia County currently has 30 buildings and facilities located throughout the county. I'm not sure if anyone would have picked that number or not. Much larger than actually I had anticipated. But keep in mind, those include not only the main administrative buildings, but also highway outposts, as well as solid waste and the various transfer stations throughout the county as well. So again, I wanted to go ahead and provide an overview as far as the buildings, the number of buildings, what they're currently used for. So what offices are located in each one. Talk about the general condition of each one of those based on the past studies, and then use that information so that way the county and the supervisors can use the information to develop a long-term capital and maintenance plan moving forward. So with that, I'll start with 401 State Street. So 401 State Street consists of 31,000 square feet. It's a masonry building constructed back in 1938, originally as a high school for City of Hudson. It currently has offices for the Board of Supervisors, Board of Elections, Central Services, County Attorney's Office, the mailroom, facilities, planning, tourism, the Comptroller's Office, Accounts Payable, Human Resources, and Civil Service as well. So I know most supervisors, obviously, since visiting the building, are most familiar with this one, so I figured it would be a good location to start. Next one would be 610. So 610 State Street, 18,000 square feet of a masonry building built back in 1886. Then renovated back in 1968 when the county took the occupancy of the building. So interestingly enough, when it was built back in 1886, that was 100 years after Columbia County was founded. So currently within this particular building, Probation Department, Public Defender's Office, Family of Woodstock has offices, the Columbia Hudson Partnership, the Backup 911 Center currently is located in the basement area, and then also County Clerk and the County Historian have storage within this building as well. Next would be 560. So again, 560 and 6 North Street. These are buildings that currently the county is going to be undertaking some renovations and improvements to under the National Grid initiative. So for 560 Warren Street, it's 1,500 square feet, masonry structure built back in 1908, originally as a bank. Currently, that building houses the county clerk's office, the Department of Motor Vehicles, as well as the county historian. And located directly adjacent to it and connected via a bridgeway over the alleyway is 6 North Street, which is 10,000 square feet, a steel structure with stucco on the exterior, originally built back in 1971. And that building currently houses the treasurer's office, managed information system, MIS, and the realty property office. One of the more modern buildings that the county has within the city of Hudson is 325 Columbia Street. So this one is a 44,000 square foot steel structure with masonry exterior as far as the facade. Originally built back in 2007, the facility contains the records management, Columbia County Health Department, the district attorney's office, the current office of the aging, as well as Columbia Health Consortium and mental health as well. Social services, also located in the city of Hudson, 32,700 square feet. Again, a steel structure with a stucco exterior. And that in its entirety houses the social services operation for the county. Located out in Philmont, 6,400 square foot masonry and steel building built back in 1967. Originally, it was a IGA grocery store located within the village. And this particular location has the Office of the Aging kitchen. So all the Meals on Wheels programs come out of this particular facility, and it also has a nutritional center as well. The public safety building and jail. So again, the county had undertaken some renovations in this particular building not too long ago as far as energy management and energy upgrades, and actually has received quite a savings from those. Total square footage is 54,000 square feet, steel and masonry structure. It houses the county jail, the sheriff's office, Homeland Security, 911 communication, the emergency management center, also the central garage, which is a outbuilding, as well as the county coroner as well. County courthouse and annex. The courthouse contains 28,788 square feet, masonry construction. This contains obviously all the court operations for the county as far as Office of Court Administration and as well as the Commissioner of Jurors. Located to the rear of that existing building was the original courthouse. Contains 2,500 square feet, which is an old masonry structure. And currently that's not occupied. It's just utilized for storage for the county clerk's office. A recent building that the county has worked on is the Fire Training Center located out at the Commerce Park. Contains 10,000 square feet pre-engineered structure. The offices within that building are the fire coordinator. It does contain a training room, also has emergency vehicle storage there. And again, EMS coordinators out at that location, as well as the emergency management office. Located also within the Commerce Park is a 5,000 square foot wooden structure. And currently that structure houses the USDA soil and water facility. That's the only thing that's located in that building at the present time. And so actually the county leases that space to the USDA for that purpose. Excuse me. So from some of those administrative buildings going over to some of the other buildings associated with the operations of the county, or the DPW and its outposts. So the DPW garage located on 23B here in Hudson is 21,600 square feet. Masonry, my apologies, that's the masonry and steel structure. Originally built back in 1930. Contains the office, as far as the offices, contains the highway administration, highway superintendent, engineering office, sign shop, bridge maintenance, and also vehicle maintenance for DPW. In addition to the main facility, the county also has several outposts located within the county. In the town of Copake, building 4,800 square feet. Again, each one of these outposts has the foreman and has vehicles for strategically handling maintenance items, DPW maintenance items, roadway maintenance items throughout the county. So Copake, 4,800 square feet, originally built back in 1960. The Livingston outpost, roughly 3,000 square feet, built prior to 1940. I did not have an exact time exactly when that was. Town of Kinderhook, 6,000 square feet, built in 1983. The New Lebanon outpost, 2,400 square feet, built in prior to 1940. And the town of Ghent outpost, 4,400 square feet, built in 1951. And many of these buildings also contain a sand salt structure as well for housing the salt. So that structure, as far as the square footage associated with that structure, is not included in those the square footages for the buildings that I provided. Solid waste. The solid waste, the main facility and office is located at the Greenport facility. So there's 4,000 square feet in total as far as the structures there. So that includes the main office for solid waste as far as the department. That's where Jolene has her office, but there's also top load buildings or a top load building, recycling center building, as well as the scale and scale house. In addition to that, again, throughout the county, there are numerous transfer stations. Each one of those transfer stations, as far as the structures, are fairly limited. Generally speaking, it's normally contains a compactor as well as an operational building for the operators that are on site. Very small in size. Usually those operator buildings are less than 200 square feet in size. So currently transfer stations are located in the Copake, town of Livingston, town of Kinderhook, New Lebanon, town of Gallatin, town of Hillsdale, Chatham, and Germantown. In addition to that, at the airport, again, another county facility, the main facility known as the Fixed Base Airport Operation, or FBO, that's when you first walk into the airport area. That has a lounge. Contains, it's a building of 8,500 square feet, pre-engineered metal building, metal skin. Again, it has the FBO. Richmore has their flight school out of that facility, as well as airplane storage within that hangar. It's an attached building, but the entire square footage is 8,500 square feet. On the southerly part of the airport is an existing maintenance hangar that was originally built by Richmore and then turned over to the county. Total square footage is 15,000 square feet. That facility is the main maintenance facility at the airport, and also contains Richmore's maintenance administration and billing, as well as additional aircraft storage for their larger aircraft within their fleet. In addition to that, there's T hangars located on the north side, which are general aviation storage, and those are rented spaces. So one item that I did not, there's one additional building I didn't have much information on, but there's one additional building located in the town of Claremont which I was a little surprised to find, but it's a chapel that the county actually has located off of 9G. That chapel contains roughly 800 square feet. So that's an additional building. So in its entirety, there's approximately 30 facilities. So back in 2019, the county funded a building condition survey, and it didn't fund it for all the buildings, but there were 5 key buildings due to their age and their condition and overall use that the county wanted to take a look at. So those buildings included 560 Warren Street, 6 North 6th Street, 401 State Street, 610 State Street, and then also the Philmont Nutritional Center. So we do have information on those. And actually, those are available to all of the supervisors to review as well. They're actually located on the county's website. So the county supervisors can go ahead and take a look at those. I'm just going to provide an overview, okay, as far as really honing in on the costs and taking a look at what the scope of that project was as far as the scope of the condition survey. So the condition survey evaluated the existing condition of each one of the buildings and then provided recommendations primarily for the upkeep and general updates to those aging systems located within each one of the buildings. It's important to understand that that's different from the study taking a look at non-compliance issues, accessibility issues within each one of those spaces. That was not included in the original scope. So those types of costs are not reflected in the costs that are outlined within the study. And I'll get into that in a moment when we start taking a look at some of the numbers. That's a very important aspect to keep in mind, because when you're looking at those numbers in the study as far as what the capital improvement costs may be, and they spread them out over years, items such as accessibility, as well as handicap accessibility, elevators, things of that nature, where if the county were to undertake a major undertaking and a renovation of any one of those buildings, I'll use 401 State Street as an example, it would be required that those aspects also be dealt with at the time of that upgrade. So those would be additional costs than what's actually shown in those particular reports. Supervisor Adams?
What about energy efficiency? Was that taken into account?
It was. The report did identify the benefits of changing out lighting, HVAC components and things of that nature. It did not. It was not its primary role by any means, but it did touch on those items where it was, if you would, low-hanging fruit, where it was identified that by replacing the system that there may be an energy savings. It did not go into calculating or determining how much energy savings that would be. So although that being said, I just want to make sure that the information that was provided in the study is still useful to the county as a whole, because it at least provides us a benchmark and providing an order of magnitude as far as what type of investment the county would be required to put into these buildings in order to keep them in good working order. Okay, not necessarily upgrading them for energy efficiency or anything like that, or bringing them up to code. But again, it gives us that benchmarks. It gives us a starting point. But Kelly, if you want to go to the next slide. So in this particular slide, what I've done is I took information that was available through each one of those reports, the condition reports, for the 5 buildings that were studied back in 2019. And the way that the reports outline those improvements, it recognizes that in many instances, again, since this is more of a maintenance program, if you would, they spread it out over a number of years. They identified what were identified as immediate or near-term improvements. So that's anywhere between 0 to 5 years. They identified mid-term improvements that are anywhere 6 to 10 years out. Long-term improvements from 11 to 12 or 11 to 20 years out. And then in addition to that, it's the cumulative amount paid into each one of those particular buildings when you add all of those together. The numbers that were presented back in 2019, they did provide a 3% escalation as far as inflation on those numbers. Okay. Yes, Supervisor.
Two quick questions on this chart. So replacement cost, I don't see a cumulative total at the bottom.
I did not. Correct.
Okay. And if I understand what you said earlier correctly, when we look at the total, near, mid, long term of the 14.79 million, there will potentially be work that needs to be done for things like ADA compliance that wouldn't need to be done if we don't improve it. But through some of these, either near, mid, or long term, it could potentially trigger code compliance.
Correct. So I wanted to
compliance.
Yeah.
So that 14.79 million compared to whatever the cumulative total is for replacement cost isn't necessarily an apple to apple comparison, because I would imagine when you put replacement cost, you did it to current code, current compliance for ADA, those types of things.
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And again, as I mentioned earlier, this is really to provide an order of magnitude. Okay. Just to provide the supervisors a bit of a snapshot to look at, what is required to keep these buildings up and operational. And keep in mind, I say a snapshot because, granted, these are 5 of the older buildings and the most important buildings from an administrative standpoint, if you would. But keep in mind, the county has 30 facilities to contend with. Again,
So
not all of them are equal. And again, I recognize that not all of them are equal, but I just wanted to kind of outline the fact that there are investments that need to be made, even to keep the general upkeep as far as operations for these facilities. And again, that's over a period of time, replacing carpet, painting, replacing HVAC equipment, replacing lighting, redoing roofs, things of that nature. Okay.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Supervisor Guzzi. Oh, you're muted.
Okay, thank you. These numbers we're using were done in 19, right?
Correct.
So we got to remember this is 3 years on this already. So we're kind of moving into that 6 to 10 area,
Right. That was
over.
Absolutely. And that's one of the points that I was going to make. Yeah. So let me finish with this and then by all means questions. So there is the cumulative total that is provided. And again, that's based on those reports and based on a 3% escalation cost annually. I also wanted to point out that the county undertook getting appraisals done. Now, granted, these are back in 2016 when those appraisals were done, but the county did have appraisals done on 4 of the 5 buildings, 560 Warren Street, 6 North 6th Street, 401, and then 610. I also then took a look at the assessed market values, understanding that there's been a change there, and trying to get a better idea, getting us closer to what one may expect based on where we are today. And I provided the assessed full market value for each one of those structures as well. And then I took a look at the replacement cost based on current costs of $375 per square foot. Now, keep in mind, even for that, as I pointed out down at the Philmont Nutrition Center, that does not account for equipment. That's $375 per square foot is just your average building. So, for instance, in the Philmont Nutrition, in addition to the $3,975,000, I've added an additional $1.5 million for kitchen equipment and things of that nature. All right. And then at the very bottom, I did not total the replacement. I did not total replacement costs because I'm not indicating that absolutely every building needs to be replaced, nor am I advocating that at this point. But I did want to at least show the supervisors when you look at the near term, midterm, long term, as far as those costs, you're talking significant dollars that are required. So, for instance, Supervisor Guzzi, if I just finish my one thought.
Yeah, go ahead. I just want to put it.
So when you're starting to look at this comparison chart, for instance, looking at 401 State Street as an example, and when you look at the total cumulative improvement cost at $4 million, based on some additional work that was done through Centrica at the time, there was an evaluation done as far as what it would take to actually bring that building up into compliance with respect to handicap accessibility, a sprinkler system as well, improvements to the railing system to bring it up to code, ramps, ADA accessible bathrooms, and CPL had worked with the consultant at that time when they were coming up with the then phase 2 improvements. But you could add another $2 million to that $4 million just to deal with those type of items. So that brings that cumulative closer towards a 6.2 to 6.3 figure. And there are many things that you need to look at when you're looking at and reviewing the overall cost. It's not always just about the numbers. You also need to take a look at how the building is being used. And is it adequately providing the space and or services and or systems that are required for the staff of the county to function adequately? And part of that has to do with Philmont. If you look at Philmont and you look at the costs there, those aren't dramatic costs that are required regarding the upkeep of that building. However, the unfortunate part is that the building itself just is inadequate as far as being able to provide the services as far as its kitchen facility, its prep area, the ability of storing all of its goods as well on site for that to be functioning correctly and efficiently. Meanwhile, if you take a look at 610 State Street, two numbers that I tend to look at is you look at your cumulative improvement cost at $4 million. You then take a look at your replacement cost at $6.7 million. And at some point when we're evaluating these buildings, there's always that line where it doesn't make sense to renovate a building anymore because you're still having a building with old bones, so to speak. And at some point, you need to move away from renovating a building and building a new building. And generally speaking, that rule of thumb tends to be about a 50%. If your cumulative improvement costs and maintenance costs and repair costs end up coming in approximately 50% or greater than your replacement costs, then that's when you really seriously need to look at replacing that particular building. Okay. So that's the case of 610 State Street. Looking at 401 State Street, if you added that additional roughly $2 million, and that's a very rough number at this point, but at $2 million, you're roughly at $6 million. And again, your replacement cost being at 11.5, again, you're at that 50% mark. We're just above the 50% mark. Okay. So again, I wanted to show all of these numbers to the supervisors, not that it's going to, the aha moment of, oh, okay, this is the answer to all of our problems. But more importantly, it shows the fact that the staff, in my opinion, the staff that the county has can only do so much as far as maintenance, but the county needs to be able to start making some significant improvements into these buildings to keep them up and running, as well as maybe looking at, as I know we are for the Office of the Aging, to see how we could go ahead and potentially build a new building, and then also perhaps see if there's an opportunity of consolidating offices into single locations. Because again, obviously, the more buildings you have, as I pointed out, this is a snapshot of 5 buildings. There are other buildings, DPW building here, as a matter of fact. There's accessibility issues up to the 2nd floor where the highway superintendent are and where our engineering offices are. Those are other buildings that also need some attention that will need attention over time. But this provides you an understanding that we need to start doing something. We need to start taking some sort of an action. And I know the county has been. And again, the county's been doing a nice job with getting together with the consultant and working through National Grid on the energy. And as those energy improvements are being done, we're also able to make some improvements, whether it's replacing a roof, obviously the replacing the lighting, and all of those items have the energy payback, but we're also able to include some building improvements as well, which has been a very significant investment, number one, but it is going to also assist the county as it moves forward. So for instance, for 560 Warren Street and 6 North 6th Street, the county's undertaking new improvements there that will benefit those particular buildings. So there's a large investment already being made there. Kelly, to the next slide. And then I'll open it up to questions after that. So next steps to consider. So one of the things to consider is whether the county would be able to create an annual budget line to fund building upgrades, repairs, and renovations to the county buildings and their systems. Again, that annual budget line, created as a capital account, if you would, could then be utilized, could be earmarked and then utilized to undertake improvements on the various buildings. And again, concentrating one building at a time as far as that's concerned. But it's important that that annual budget line be truly annual. So if it is depleted in a year, that it's then rebudgeted for the next year. And again, we can discuss further at later meetings as we get closer to budget time, what that number might be. But it obviously, based on the expenditures that you saw with just those 5 buildings, it can be a pretty significant figure. We also need to continue to evaluate the operational needs of the departments, provide more efficient workspaces within those buildings, and to just consolidate departments into fewer buildings if practical. So my point is that if by either renovating buildings, adding additions, creating new buildings, building new buildings, if the opportunity arises to be able to consolidate those departments into that new space, to see if we can then go ahead and reduce the overall number of buildings that the county has under its belt that it's going to be responsible for as far as its asset as well as its liabilities. I'm not saying to consolidate departments as a whole. All I'm saying is the space to be able to put them into buildings. Consider long-term bonding for large capital improvement projects, which I know the county has done in the past. Obviously consider new buildings if needed to meet their goals. And I think the Office of the Aging is a prime example of that, where the existing IGA building located out in Philmont is just dramatically undersized, inefficient for their current needs, and more important, their future needs. And then also then start creating priorities based on those building uses, and its needs. I know one of the things that we have been working on, and we've been working with CPL, is the Office of the Aging. I wanted this presentation first, and I think some supervisors wanted this presentation first to provide an overview of, number one, what are the assets and liabilities that you currently have before we jumped into the Office of the Aging. So that's the only reason I didn't include that Office of the Aging presentation now. I wanted the supervisors to at least get a better understanding of what the current facilities are, the number of facilities, get an understanding of maybe even taking a closer look at some of those condition reports to see items that need to be done, get a better understanding of the order of magnitude, if you would, as far as costs of construction. And as we all recognize, especially more recently, generally speaking, construction costs can climb anywhere between 3 to 5%. I can tell you during COVID, numbers that we've seen is that they jump up as high as 25%, and for specialty items, even 30%. because of supply chain issues. So right now we're in a bit of a bubble there. But again, like everything else, it's all cyclical. So what I would like to do is, obviously I'm going to open it up to additional questions by the supervisors, but after we've had an opportunity of discussing this, I would like to schedule another meeting just to review the feasibility that CPL had put together on the Office of the Aging, and then better formulate that plan of how we can go ahead and try to move forward with that particular project, at least from the feasibility of it, and to see whether the supervisors would then take the next steps, which would be look at the funding and then look at least soliciting requests for proposal for architects as far as that particular facility. Because there's going to be a few moving pieces to make that work, which I'll get into in that presentation. But I wanted to at least provide this information to everyone. Supervisor Lagonia?
Yeah, thank you, Ray. It's my understanding that, and correct me if I'm wrong, 610 is probably in the worst shape of all the buildings that we use currently.
Correct. 610 is, and yes, it absolutely is. No question about it. And again, if you take a look at that chart, when you look at the numbers and the amount of money that has to be put into it versus its value and its replacement value, it's well over that. It's just over that 50%. So yes, agreed.
So 610 versus say 401 versus any other buildings we have, is there room in any of those lots, whether it's 610, 401, if we were to do a full renovation, a full redo to make it bigger?
Not at 610.
610 looks tight. 401 kind of looks tight, but I don't know. Maybe not.
Quite honestly, I think 401 has a lot of promise, that area. Let me put it the area of 401, because it's not contained within that site.
So it doesn't have to be replaced for, in my estimation, apples to apples. It could be that if we're going to knock a building down, I'm not saying that supervisor on board for that. I mean, I'm going in a different direction maybe, but that building could be, 1.5 times its size or 2 times its size, which could then become a compound or a complex for many, many, many offices. If we're doing it as opposed to these renovation projects, and as opposed to spending, I forget the number you had on 401 is 11.9, maybe it's a $16 million project. I'm just throwing numbers out there, but then it becomes much more of a hub for the county. And then you offload some of these other buildings that we don't need, which could offset some of that cost. So we haven't looked into any of that type of a thing yet, have we?
Well, we've looked at some of that as far as offloading some of the buildings.
Well, the offload I understand, but making a larger.
I've again myself, I've looked at a very cursory 1,000-foot high look at 401, and I think there's promise there.
Okay.
And I think something could be done. To me, 610 would be the building. If any of the buildings, if the county's trying to get out from under any of the buildings, I agree with you, Supervisor, that on the surface right now, 610 is the one to get out from underneath. And again, there's value there. If you look at, the full market value now, it's identified as 1.3, but the market right now is crazy as far as real estate. It's a great building. It's got historic significance, but quite honestly, in order to do it justice as far as true renovations, the county doesn't have the funds to do that. A private investor, if you sell it and you're able to recoup monies based on that sale, obviously that could be put in, and as you point out, towards creation of additions or a newer building somewhere else. I agree.
Last question. Is there any restrictions on commercial space in reference to height restrictions? I realize that there's apartment complexes that are much higher but is there any restrictions on a commercial type building that we would want, whether it were 4 floors, 6 floors, 8 floors? Is there any restrictions?
I'll have to take a look. You're specific to the city of Hudson, I'm assuming. Yeah, I'd have to take a look at that, and I will, and I'll get back to the supervisors on that.
Thank you.
Yep. Supervisor Skoda.
Thanks, Ray.
Yeah.
Hey, this was before you joined the county, so maybe Ron Knott can answer the question, but whatever happened to the county looking at the JLE building?
So, you want me to answer that? So yeah, we did start to look at that. We never formally did any type of feasibility study. That was what led us to taking a look at the building condition study, because what we were thinking of at that time is if we could buy JLE, then we would get rid of, 610, 401, and even, 560 Warren Street. That's why we kind of did this building condition study and had appraisals done of those. And then that led into some discussions with the city. Originally, we talked about just trying to share some office space for the mayor's office, but the city's needs and desires for that building grew and grew. They wanted to put many daycare facilities in there, as well as the youth center, and use a lot more of the building than what would have been feasible for us to share it with. So at one point in time, we just said, okay, maybe best for the city to buy it. The city has since kind of dropped the ball, and I'm not sure. Right now, the building is in contract to be sold to an outside agency that wants to put apartments in there. So, as far as I know, that's kind of off the market, but that maybe somebody has something newer about that. I don't know.
I just would like to add, I think we did find out also that the renovation and the asbestos removal would have been cost prohibitive.
Yeah, you're right, Matt. I mean, the city of Hudson did a pretty thorough, when they were looking at buying it, I mean, the sale price was $3 million, but their renovation cost came in at $20 million. For that money, we could build new. It's just when we're trying to keep the agencies in the city of Hudson that we need to keep in the city of Hudson, it's you don't find open space in the city of Hudson to do it with. That's a challenge. So.
Supervisor Hotel?
Yeah, I just wanted to first say thank you so much to Mr. Jerkowski for the excellent work on this presentation. Really great data, and thank you for compiling it all. I think this is a great first step, and I have some questions that I'm going to throw out that I'm not expecting answers to today, but I think they're really important when we look at what the best next step is. 30 properties or buildings is a lot. And when you talk about fuel costs for heating and going and plowing, and the more buildings you have, the more expensive it gets on regular maintenance. So if we can find a way to put as few buildings as possible to get as many departments as possible, that's the key. So some of the things I'd like to look at moving forward is which departments must be in the city of Hudson versus departments that can be located in Greenport or Claverack or somewhere outside of the city of Hudson. I think that's a really important thing to look at. Which departments must be standalone or have a separation from others. I mentioned probation and another department in one building, and it was wait, probation has to be completely separate, which is understandable. So we need to know what departments can we put together, what departments either need to be in their own building or at least have a firewall in between and have their own separate parking, their own separate entrance. So there's really not any crossover, even if they're within the same structure. Which current departments might need more square footage if we're looking at making the best possible situation? And again, if you asked any department, they'd say, sure, we can use extra space. Like which departments are currently really, really cramped and could use an expansion? And what square footage right now do we have that might be vacant or usable? So if we took the entire square footage of all the buildings and said this department needs this much, I think we need to look at that total square footage needed, total square footage had, and how can we cross-reference that? And I do think we have a space utilization committee. This seems like the perfect project moving forward, obviously working hand in hand with Ray. For the space utilization committee to take on this larger project of next steps to look at all of these things. So that's kind of a statement. And then I did have a few questions. When I look at the 5 buildings that the condition report looked at, I see around 14 million for the long-term upkeep costs. And I did do a total of the replacement costs, and I came to 31.856 million. It's not quite at that 50% mark, but I do feel if you added in ADA compliance, the things that would need, code compliance, the things that would need to be done when we do renovations and upgrades, you might be at 50% or higher. And so I'm not saying let's sell all the buildings and build one, but I think we need to look at the ADA compliance and the other things added in, so we really have an apples to apples comparison. And my question on that you might or might not know the answer to is, why were those 5 buildings chosen? Was it that we felt they were in the most need of repair, or did we feel like they housed the departments that we had to address first? Does anyone know?
Yeah, I can answer that. We really picked those buildings because we were targeting at that time the concept of trying to move all of those departments into John L. Edwards, if we could purchase John L. Edwards. So just in square footage, we took the square footage of John L. Edwards, I think that was 90,000 square feet, and said, okay, could we fit these agencies in there?
Got it.
So that's why we picked them.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So those are kind of my follow-ups, Ray. If you want me to email all that to you, I'm happy to do that. And I do feel like the Space Utilization Committee might be the perfect working committee to work with Ray on getting some of those answers. And then, of course, coming back to the full board to say, now we know that we need this much square footage inside Hudson, this much square footage outside Hudson to renovate our inside Hudson buildings. It's going to be approximately X, including ADA and code compliance, to build brand new on a property if we can. Here's how much it would cost. Because I do think with both the new fire training center and the property that we just kind of put on hold with CEDC, as well as the new OFA kitchen, there could be potential to do those projects in a way that could at least house all of the not needing to be located in Hudson departments in a more cost-effective way. So thank you for hearing me out, and I appreciate your presentation.
Thank you. Yes, and if you don't mind, please email me those. I did jot them down, but if you don't mind, that would help me out. Thank you. Supervisor Adams, I believe you had your hand up first.
So I have just a couple of quick questions. Have we looked at, are there any asbestos remediation issues within the buildings that we currently own and operate?
I do know anytime that the county undertakes any type of improvement at any one of the buildings, that they are running an asbestos survey for those areas that they may disturb. So for instance, the work that's being done at 560 Warren, there's a cooling tower that's being placed on the roof there. So there's going to be some disturbance as far as penetrations and things like that, as well as the partial or the roof replacement. So they actually have just completed a asbestos survey there to identify if there are any.
So those costs would be additional for any renovations going forward as well.
Correct.
Okay. And
absolutely,
those,
yeah, any type of yeah.
And those are significant costs. Okay.
Yes.
The other thing is the trigger for compliance issues. It used to be a percentage of project or a percentage of square feet. What's the trigger? Well, what dollar amount are you allowed to spend before you trigger those compliance issues?
I'll have to take a look at it. It used to be a 50%. It used to be a 50% rule as far as 50% value of construction to replacement. However, the code did change and they created a tier structure. So I'll email that out to everyone.
And then my other question is kind of a follow-up to Tistry is if we're looking at combining or consolidating departments, I'm wondering how recent is our evaluation of what the department's needs are, space needs are. What's our most recent information about how many square feet and how many offices and how many meeting rooms and et cetera? What data are we using to make these comparisons?
Well, I believe that's what the supervisor was mentioning is the fact of bringing it to the Space Utilization Committee to have that study done, or at least to gather that information. What I've done, at least for the Office of the Aging, as an example, is actually having interviews with the staff, taking a look at the existing facility, going through and seeing how they're using their space out in Philmont, as well as the other spaces that they're utilizing, because they actually have refrigerator units in various locations throughout the county because they're actually not able to house everything in their own building. But just using that as an example, that's what I've done, at least with the Office of the Aging.
So just, I guess my question is, I think we're identifying a need, that this is something that would have to be undertaken that has not been undertaken thus far.
Well, right. So I did look at we did look at the Office of the Aging, including its office staff. So yes, but we have not done it countywide. So if the question is have we done it countywide? I'm not aware of one that was done at least since January, and I'm not sure if one was done prior to that.
Okay, thank you.
If I could just jump in, I mean, over the years, there have been space utilization studies done, but obviously they'd be stale now. And, I can tell a little story back when the county bought the Charles Williams School. That school was going to solve all the county space problems and needs. Then that didn't work, so they bought 401, and that was going to solve all our space problems and needs. Well, things change very rapidly.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed.
And at one time, most all of our agencies were in the DMV, in the courthouse building.
Courthouse.
So that,
Right. Correct. Supervisor Guzzi?
Yeah, to go back to the replacement cost of $375, that doesn't include property, infrastructure, building, or anything like that, does it, Ray?
That does include some, again, provided that it was located in the city. I provided that for the city. That did provide for some infrastructure, did not anticipate land acquisition. So land acquisitions, any extensive.
What about demo and stuff like that?
No, it does not. No, it does not. Correct.
And I
Those were
think that-
just strictly replacement numbers of what the cost would be if you were to, had a lot that you were able to build upon. But
Right.
You are correct. There are added costs on top of that.
So we need to kind of keep that in mind too, that 375 is just not a cut and dry number. Then you also got the move time, to the time that we actually build one and have to move the other people over. I noticed on the cost of repairs, I think they're very conservative. Am I correct kind of saying that on the repair costs? Because just kind of being around and seeing what goes on and hearing different things, seems like we've got pretty conservative numbers there.
Yeah, so I did take a look at that. I would say, yes, they are conservative. They're conservative as far as the numbers that they had provided, but they're not conservative in the items that they were addressing.
Okay.
So I think it's a bit of a wash. I think they may be slightly on the high side, but when I looked at that report, just knowing a few of the buildings, 401 as an example, just because I'm very familiar with that as far as walking through the building for many years, there are a lot of areas that actually were not addressed in that condition survey. Above and beyond those items that I identified as far as the handicap accessibility, there's energy as far as electric distribution throughout that building.
That's what I was kind of meaning, Ray, that there was stuff that wasn't addressed.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant conservative the opposite way.
No, I meant that things weren't addressed. That's what I was kind of saying.
Right. There are a lot of missing pieces in those reports.
By the way, nice job. Good job.
Thank you. Supervisor Mussman?
Just a couple things. I don't believe John L. Edwards has been, I don't think that's a done deal. I think that still may be available. The other thing is there space that's just, you can think through at DSS, there is space there. I don't know if there's any way we could build something there. And the DSS facility has a lot of parking around it, et cetera, et cetera. And the other issue is how many, the issue of remote and how many offices could potentially or might potentially be useful as a remote option to cut down on some of the space that we, waste if there's an opportunity, since that's part of the new conversation. So those are just some comments about, anyway, I just asked the mayor. He says he doesn't think that developer is going to go through with the John L. Edwards project. So that's what I got. Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Basson has his hand up, right?
Okay, Supervisor Basson?
Ray, thank you very much for this presentation. Just please summarize for us, what are the next steps and what should we expect in terms of what you will be proposing over the next 6 months for us to consider?
So first is I still believe that the Office of the Aging is one of the critical components that needs to be addressed. based on the feasibility. So I at least want to present that feasibility because that feasibility also provides for some of the items that have been discussed. And again, keep in mind, it's a feasibility study identifying that it is an option that can be explored and makes sense. And that's building a new building out at the parcel at the Commerce Center. In addition to the Office of the Aging, as far as its kitchen, it would be moving the Office of the Aging offices out into that building, potentially the Health Consortium as well into that building also. So you'd have the kitchen, Office of the Aging, and Health Consortium. So by doing that, that's going to now free some space down at 325. And as the supervisors have all identified, that is now space that we can potentially move other offices into. So we'd have to take a look at, again, restrictions, whether it be probation or some of those offices out of 610. Can some of those offices out of 610 be moved into 325? Because again, I believe 610 is the one building, the first building, let me not to say the one, but the first building that I would be looking to perhaps unload as far as the county and look towards other options.
Ray, when can we expect recommendations from you on specifically what you think we ought to do?
So first it would be Office of the Aging. And I think, well, quite honestly, the bigger part of that is it's going to be a multi-phase process. I believe another recommendation of mine is also looking at 401 State Street. And I think that there are opportunities there as well. So that would be another item that I'd be working on as we're looking and dealing with the Space Utilization Committee and getting input from them as far as some of the needs. But I believe 401, after we deal with the Office of the Aging, kitchen, how we're handling 610, and then 401. That's how I initially see it.
I understand the moving parts, but I guess what I'm asking is, when will you have a firm recommendation that we can approve?
Well, if I could jump in, Ray, that would be what would be in a master plan that we had asked you to work.
Understood, right. And this is the first step. Again, this is the first step in getting to that. And so I'll need some time to get that complete master plan together, understanding, all the nuances. But I'm not convinced that, I can tell you on the surface, I don't believe that renovating 401 makes the most sense. I think something could be done down in that area, but I'm not convinced at this point that 401, as far as a full renovation, would make a lot of sense. But again, getting back to your specific question, Supervisor Basson, I will need a few more months to get that put together as a whole.
So are we talking about September, December? I mean, just to give us a sense of when we can expect something concrete.
I would think that I'd be able to get something to you by September.
Okay, thank you very much. That would be great. Thanks.
I just want to remind everybody there's a 5 o'clock Public Works meeting, so that we need to hop on too.
Jim Guzzi had a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing. We all seen what's going on and how much money this is costing us. So we all need to be aware of where we have to go and where we have to budget and be concerned about that and make sure we stay fiscal on top of our game, because there's a lot of money that has to be spent. And these buildings are getting older. So that's something that we can't lose track of. Just keep everybody up to snuff with everything. We got to start now with the planning process on the finance side, because as much as we plan the buildings, without the money, it ain't happening.
Agreed.
So,
and let me just say, Ray, I am delighted that you are leading this effort. I am very confident we will get to the right place in the right time, and thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Window, probably about like 6 weeks. The one that you guys want to.
Who's that?
That's part of Public Works. Somebody
The
said
elevator.
that.
Oh,
Okay.
Again. All right, how about we have a
Thank you,
motion?
Ray.
We move into Public Works and we'll continue this conversation in the future.
There is a separate link, guys.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank
all
you.
so much. Thanks,
Bye,
guys.
everyone. Thanks, guys.
See you in Public Works.
Meeting, sorry, we're running a little bit late. The last meeting ran on, but it was very informative. I thought we had some good information, so we'll continue to share that information. Hopefully next Ray will be able to share the feasibility study that we did with CPL on some of the projects there. First, we have Mitch Toombs from Centrica up, and we, as part of our phase 2 project, we did approve the work that's going to be done at the DMV building as well as the treasurer's office. The attachment to that job was also to do the new roof with solar generation at the DPW garage out on 23. So Mitch is ready to present that portion of that project and see if we can get everybody underway with that. So Mitch, you can take over.
Yeah, thank you, Ron, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for the time again this evening. Just want to confirm that. Can you guys see my screen? I just shared it.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Awesome.
Yep.
Kelly, we got it working this time. So I think I
Sure
figured
did.
it out. It was user error on my end, but yeah, thank you, Ron. The last time you saw myself, Mitch Toombs, and then Scott Clark's also on the call, our project director, was back in March when we were talking to you about the DMV project, which is now underway. We're working on getting materials and getting things going there. We had made mention about the highway garage project, specifically about the roof and the solar PV system. So really excited to take you guys through that today. We have a final scope we want to present and hopefully get your feedback to move it forward so we can start helping the county conserve more energy there and actually produce energy with the solar PV system. So as always, as we go through this, please interrupt us, ask questions. We want this to be interactive. If there's any comments, jump in. We'll give some time at the end as well to do that. But if there's anything that's on your mind as we go through, please stop us and ask the question. So let me advance the slide here. So here we go. So this project, as I just mentioned, is going to be taking place at the Columbia County Highway Garage. And there's two specific measures that we're going to be looking at. The roof, which is definitely end of life, and I'll let Scott Clark get into more of those details on the next slide. We'll be looking to replace that roof completely for you, as well as putting on the new roof a new solar PV system that's going to generate power for the county, not only at that facility, but be able to be passed down to other accounts along the way as well. So, Scott, I'll pass it over to you and let you get into some of the details on the new roof over at the Highway Garage.
Sure. And good evening, everybody. Thank you for your time today. I'll try to be somewhat brief and not get too nerdy. And if anybody wants me to get more in depth on anything, I'll be happy to do so. So the first item we're going to look at is a replacement of the existing roof. I know we talked about it before that there were some issues with that existing one that have been remedied somewhat by the county. There's been a couple of patches that have been made, but the existing roof is an EPDM membrane. There have been some leaks, and there's been a little bit of compromised insulation that we confirmed as part of a thermal scan that we performed of the roof. And so our scope would intend to replace about 1,300, give or take, square feet of compromised insulation board that's underneath the existing membrane. So that would come out and get replaced with new. And then over the entire roof surface, we'd be installing another 1/2 inch of a high density cover board, which is a poly ISO insulation board that has a very high compressive strength, about 109 PSI. On top of that, we'd be putting a new white TPO membrane roof as opposed to the EPDM. So this is going to give us a couple of things here. The first is that we're going to get a little bit of extra R value. So there'll be some additional insulation on the roof. But the high density cover board is going to be a really nice underlayment for us for the work that's going to be done for putting the solar array on top. And it's going to really help make sure that if there's any tools that get dropped, any hail damage, or really just any long-term having the system on the roof, that it's not going to end up in any depressions that would end up harming your membrane. And really, if people are walking around or servicing the system, cleaning the panels in the future, any of those things, there won't be any incidental damage that could occur. As part of this new roofing system is going to come with a 25-year warranty on the roofing system itself, which is really just considered the insulation as well as the membrane. And then the membrane is going to be a 30-year warranty. So it's kind of nice to get that extra 5 years just in the event there's going to be anything associated with that. We're going to make sure that we take care of all the applicable inspections that are going to be associated with that, both upon initial completion of the roof before there's anything on it, and then a reinspection again after the solar array is installed to make sure that that warranty coverage is still in effect. And Mitch, can you just get to the next slide? There's a couple of other details regarding the roof. As part of this, we are going to pull the existing trim metals that are there. Some of those are kind of near where some of the insulation's been compromised. So the edge metal trim is going to be removed and replaced with new galvanized metal trim. There is going to be a new gutter and downspout system installed as part of the roof as well, just to make sure that it's going to be compatible with a new height. We're going to put some new walk pads on that roof in between the various solar arrays. And in a couple of slides, you can kind of see what that overhead looks like. But we'll have those walking paths up there to make sure that we're not going to have any additional issues with wear over the lifetime of the system. And then we're also going to have what we call some U anchors that will be installed. And that is a support point for the PV array that's going to be on the roof, mostly to help with wind uplift, if anything else. So those are an anchor that gets screwed into the roof deck, and then it gets kind of heat welded around it to make sure that it's waterproof. So the roofing contractor is going to install those as part of this system. And so all of that will be warranted all at the same time. So it should be a really nice package that's going to provide the county with a lot of longevity as far as that roofing system is going to be concerned on the building. So hopefully nobody who's on this call is going to have to deal with touching this roof again while we're still here. I know Brian maybe, but we'll see. I know that was one of the things you're figuring maybe not. So we'll see. If you want to hit the next slide, Mitch. Solar PV array. And I know that's glossing over it, and maybe I'll get through these and we can come back to talk about both if there's any questions from anyone on the board. So the solar PV array, this is kind of an initial overview. We're looking to install 185 kW, which is the DC size, or 150 kW AC size solar PV array on the roof of the building. Our estimated production for this system right now, and it's a conservative estimate, is just over 206,000 kilowatt hours per year. And that's based on a helioscope model we've run, which is an 8760 model based on latitude and longitude and shading and a number of other parameters for the components within the system. We've got 3 inverters right now. You can see kind of the little blue circles with lightning bolts on those are going to be the inverters for the system. Those are going to be ground mounted adjacent to where the electrical service comes in. We're going to put those on the ground with some shielding to make sure that way they're easier to service. Nobody has to climb up on the roof if they're just doing routine maintenance or if they need a reset, things of that nature. This system, as Mitch had mentioned earlier, is going to be set up for remote net metering, or it's also now called remote net crediting, where this array is going to produce more power than can be used at the DPW site itself. The remainder is going to be exported back into the system, and we're going to be able to apply that to some of the county's other bills using what they call VEDR, or the value of distributed energy resources. So we're not going to get paid a wholesale rate like a power producer, but it's a much higher rate that's fairly attractive at this point, and it's also locked in for the next 25 years of the system. So there's going to be a little bit of flux that goes along with that, but it's going to tend to trend per how the New York ISO sets it. So as power costs tend to go up in the future, then your credits are also going to track upward as well. We are going to be upgrading the utility transformers that are right now hanging on a pole across the street. National Grid is going to upgrade those as part of our interconnection process to be able to handle the output of this system. So it'll be nice to have something that's actually new out there instead of something that may be 20 years old. Can you go to the next page, Mitch? This system is going to come with some fairly robust warranties on it as well. So the panels themselves have a 10-year product warranty and a 20-year linear power output warranty. So the panels do degrade over time for their output, but the manufacturer will warranty that output. And the linear degradation just means that is the curve, that it's a fixed percentage. I believe right now we've carried it about 0.7% per year, which is probably a little bit aggressive. They usually warranty, we expect to see somewhere around 0.5%. The inverters have a 12-year product warranty. The optimizers and racking will be 25 years each. And then the data acquisition system that was going to have a 5-year product warranty on it. As part of us trying to get an incentive on this project from NYSERDA, everything for the installation is going to have a 5-year craftsmanship warranty. So this should be something. Please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, question. This may be stupid, but if you get hit by ice pellets or hail or anything like that break these things, that would fall back to our insurance, or how would that work?
Correct. Typically that's like act of God sort of stuff, where these are fairly robust, that hailstorms really shouldn't bother panels at this point in time. If there's something where we're talking baseball sized hail that's really abnormal, then that would fall under an insurance claim. That would be outside of the typical product one.
And that is covered through insurance? I know the way companies are today. Is that?
I would have to check and see what the county currently has for that.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know what type of rider is currently in place for that with the county. That's
Maybe we can just check that. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure. So the other part that's going to come along with this, as part of us putting the system in, is we're going to install a data acquisition system through a company called Also Energy. And what that is that will provide the county with some real-time data as far as system performance is concerned. And so actually, Mitch, if you want to just hit the next slide quick, there's a graphic of what the typical dashboard is going to look like. So this is something that can give you daily, weekly, monthly, entire lifetime of the system outputs. So this system is something that Centrica will help get set up for the county. We can set it up so that there's alarms or alerts if for some reason the system is underperforming where our estimates are. So that's kind of a flag that either we need to come out and look at it from a workmanship issue, or Brian can go check and make sure all the inverters are turned on and somebody didn't accidentally turn one off, or something hasn't faulted. But it's also nice that this is going to be a web accessible platform where you'll be able to try and show anybody that's going to have questions about how we're performing. You can see this right here in a graphical fashion. This will also allow you to export things into Excel or CSV format, so you can export some reports for trending. And it does a really nice on the side. It kind of does a real-time greenhouse gas conversion as far as your energy production as well as trees or greenhouse gases. It only shows a couple of things here that actually scrolls vertically, and it kind of changes depending on, as time goes on, they have different things that will update based on what the production of the array is. So this is something that's going to be included as part of the installation of that system. So that's all the kind of the technical nuts and bolts. Are there any questions or comments on this particular stuff? So yes.
Yeah, I just had a question on the overhead of the solar array, where you show the panels that are being installed around protuberances in the roof.
Yes, sir.
Will those protuberances be with the new roof also, or is it just a representation of what would happen on the old roof?
So those are actually going to stay because those are exhaust ventilators for the roof for the building itself. So there's a kind of like a little bit of a doghouse where there's an exhaust fan that blows out now.
All right, so
those
there's
are going
no
to be
omnibus
recovered.
approach to refining other aspects of the building ventilation or anything like that?
No, we have not looked at trying to remove or change any of those aspects as part of this project.
Okay. And just one other question. I'm sorry for taking time. When you pull back the old roof, will that expose anything that may need to be upgraded in a more easily fashion from up top than below? Let's say wiring or anything else. Like, do we oversee any overages or?
So at this point, so good question. So right now, the way that the roof is constructed is it's a metal roof deck with an insulation board that's on top of it. And then there's the roof membrane itself. So we don't anticipate that anything is going to be exposed in between the membrane, the insulation, and then the metal decking. If anything, we would find, if we wanted to call it a compromised roof deck, which would be a much bigger issue for repair, but you'd be able to see that from the underside of the roof deck inside the garage right now. And so we have had a structural engineer out to evaluate the system. They've been running some calculations to make sure the loading is acceptable. So we don't see any deficiencies, and we don't anticipate we would find anything other than potentially additional compromised wet insulation. If that's the case, we would fix that insulation while we're there. And as part of this project, this is a guaranteed price project. So that's not something the county is going to see unless we, for somehow, all of the roof insulation was compromised, for instance. And that's not what our thermal scans are showing. There would need to be a significant change and something material in what the scope of the project would be. If we find additional insulation or more trim metal, or there's a pipe coming through the roof that needs additional flashings that wasn't caught, that would be taken care of as part of the scope of our project without that being passed to the county.
Thank you.
Certainly. Any other comments, questions at this point in time?
Scott, what was the overall, I know you gave some kilowatt hours, but what do we expect for financial return from the solar system?
So I know we've got some financial numbers on another slide that's coming up. Right now, based on what we're seeing with the rates that we have in here and about a 2% escalation in electricity rates, this is about a 17-year payback on the system currently for just the solar. And so that is based on a combination of on-site energy usage. So everything that we're seeing that's produced and going straight into the garage, kind of, it doesn't go through the utility meter at all. And then the remainder that's going to go out is going to be that VETR credit, which is going to be, can be spread out amongst a number of utility accounts, or it can go to a single account for the county. Right now, our intention is to try and spread that to the two other accounts that are located here at the highway garage. One of them is for the back barn where trucks are plugged in the wintertime. One of them is for the fuel island. And then the remaining account that we're looking to send things to is going to be down to 325. And so that building has enough consumption that it will more than take whatever excess production we have. So in the event there's higher solar production, it's just going to be an additional credit that will offset that bill there. So right now we're looking at approximately a 17-year simple.
Scott, does that take into consideration also the bonding costs?
Let's see. I don't believe that we have a specific bonding cost listed in there at this time.
All right. So that 17-year could be shorter if you put that in there, right?
Well, again, we were using ARPA funding to do this project, so we're not bonding it.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah. I think it was about $20,000 a year or something. Is that about right, Scott, that we were going to generate for that?
Yeah, and actually, if you want to hit this next slide, this is
this is a good segue. So Ron, just to kind of hit a little bit more on, so this is everything. This is the roof and the solar PV system all in one project here. But to kind of break out the roof or the solar PV system separately, like Scott said, it's a 17-year, which is conservative because we're showing a conservative number on the savings. We think there's going to be more savings than we're showing. We'd rather we'd rather land there than the opposite. And also the NYSERDA rebate that you guys can see here that we're guaranteeing on the front end, which is lowering the out of pocket for the county. So that's a good payback for where we are right now. And as rates go up, which they are going up, you're going to be seeing more savings, beyond almost the $21,000, $20,000 number you're seeing here. So as Scott mentioned, the way that it's structured is you're going to see about a third of that savings coming directly to offset the electrical costs at the DPW, and then 2/3 of it is going downstream. And we're going to be strategic about what accounts get those credits so that we're offsetting the higher rates that you guys are paying at some of the bigger buildings that you have. So there's the math behind it, but ultimately we think conservatively 17-year payback is what you're going to see. So to look at the total financials, the total project cost with the roof and the solar PV system is just under $900,000. As I mentioned, the NYSERDA rebate of $65,000, that's based on them paying a certain dollar amount per watt produced, based on their current incentive program. And so that right there, we're guaranteeing as part of the project. So that's something that we'll be submitting on behalf of the county. We're guaranteeing it, so you guys aren't even paying that up front and getting it back. We're going to take care of that for you. And as we've seen before, anything additionally, if there are extra rebates, we don't anticipate it with this system, but if there are, that'd come back to the county if there is anything additionally there. So after the rebate, the total project cost to the county is $833,000. Year one savings, as you can see, is just over $20,000. Again, we're keeping that a conservative number. We think it could be higher and will be higher. And then one of the nice things that I know the county is tracking very, very closely, and Scott touched on this a little bit when it came to the monitoring system, is the greenhouse gas reduction. So, pretty significant amount of greenhouse gas reductions with this project of 146 metric tons. That's certainly going to help the county scorecard when it comes to tracking climate smart activities. And I know you guys have your own climate smart committee. This is a big win for that type of stuff, and is just, really putting you in the spot you want to be at when it comes to that. The state's pushing that big, and you guys are going to be in a good spot with this project being able to generate that type of electricity and really reduce the carbons that are currently being produced throughout the facilities. So any questions on this? I see someone's got their hand raised there. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, two questions. The first question is, how much did the roof replacement cost? You really shouldn't lump that in with the solar panel cost.
Yeah, Scott, do you have that? We lumped it together because of the way the county's paying for it, but we did obviously have those priced separately. I think it's not quite. I don't want to speak, Scott. You probably have the breakout, so
I'm pulling it up right now.
Yep.
It actually makes the solar look better if you take the roof out, right? I mean, you need to replace the roof anyway, right?
Right. Yep.
So, but the other question was, we have a solar farm in Kinderhook, and I was told the panels in the first year, 20 to 40% of them have failed. So
Wow.
There's a whole row of new panels sitting there right now. So if these panels fail on this roof, who fixes them?
So those panels, I'm sorry, I'll sit back. So on the warranty side, that if these panels fail, then that's something that those panels are going to have to get replaced. So they're going to be warranted by the manufacturer, and that's also going to be covered as they're part of our workmanship warranty to make sure that this system's going to operate. Really, for the first 5 years, there shouldn't be anything that's going to have to happen. So that's kind of where everything is going to be covered based on our manufacturer or under that workmanship warranty. Yep. So that's a very surprising failure rate.
Right. This is a pretty reliable source who is part of the project, actually. The other point, does the efficiency of these solar panels decline in coming years?
It does. So typically when the panels when we see the solar panels in the system itself, is in the first year, you tend to see a 1 to 1.5% reduction in efficiency. And then after that, we typically see 0.5% degradation over time. So that's been factored in through. We have some cash flows that we were looking at. Really, we've based most of
No,
this.
that's factored in though.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay.
So
That was it.
it is the degradation is less than we're assuming the escalation will be for the electricity costs. So it's kind of offsetting what that increase in energy will be, and it's just lowering that amount.
All right.
What would-
Thank you.
What's the norm on these panels going bad? If you said 40% or 35% is not normal, what is the norm?
I mean, we have typically seen where when we do solar projects like this for our warranty reserve, we will sometimes keep 0.75% of costs in play. We expect to see a little bit of initial like infant mortality or bad batch panels. Normally, like less than 3% failures.
Okay.
We have had it where we've connected a string and the string has gone bad shortly after. We get a lot of something that's been energized. Typically, that's because there was something was compromised during shipping or the manufacturing process.
Right.
And really, the bigger issue has only ever been getting stuff shipped in lately because of the shipping delays and logistics. We're actually looking to use some panels that Centrica has. We made a large purchase of panels in the past that we have warehouse currently. So we're pulling from our own inventory to try and help avoid any of those issues that are coming up as far as procurement. There's also some very large solar tariffs that are currently being discussed right now at the federal level. A couple of years ago, there was some tariffs put against Chinese panels, and a lot of production had been moved to Southeast Asia, which is where a bulk of offshore panels are made. And there's currently some further discussions about additional anti-dumping tariffs being put in place. So in order to kind of avoid some of that potential cost increase, shipping delays, and risk on the tariff side, we're using panels that have been pre-purchased that we have warehoused currently.
Okay, I guess one other question quick is, and I think we did discuss this at one point. Is there any chance of us running into asbestos on that roof when you guys open it up? Anything unexpected, or we're okay with that?
I don't believe that roof out there has any asbestos that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just didn't want we didn't want to surprise you.
Us either, for that matter.
Yeah.
So yeah, Ray or Ron, I don't believe there's any other. We haven't run into that, or there hasn't been any other asbestos concerns at that building to this point to date that I'm aware of.
You're not removing that much, so.
Right, exactly, yeah, because you're not going down to the panels as far as the metal pan or anything of that nature, as far as the replacement. And my understanding is that I believe that roof was replaced 25 years ago or thereabouts. So they wouldn't have been using asbestos materials that
Okay, just checking.
So it's a good question. It's something we want to make sure we had covered as well.
Over at the treasurer's office, that is something that we were putting into play was, looking at things like that because those groups could be hot out there, but we had studies done and they came back okay.
Okay.
Is there any other questions for Mitch or Scott on the project? Ray has a resolution later if the committee wants to move ahead with this project as planned, but Ray has that resolution in his package. So we're just answering questions to Mitch or Scott right now as the presenters. Everybody good?
Yep.
All right. Well, that's it. I thank Mitch and Scott very much for the presentation. Look forward to this phase of the project. We will move on to the regular public works meeting here. Who do you have up first, Kelly?
Thank you. Let me just get it pulled up here.
Yep.
I believe we have highway first.
Tony's got good news. The snow's over, so.
Yeah, I thought that last month.
Yeah, right. All right, take it away, Tony.
All right. We're still patching shoulders, potholes, and we're pretty much done with the trees for now, and hopefully done with snow and ice control operations. We dismantled our snow fence already, and we dismantled and remantled our snow and ice equipment. So we will be dismantling that once again. We did begin sweeping the county roadways. Right-of-way cleanup on most of all the roads are done. Preparing for our summer construction projects, washing bridges, ditch and culvert cleaning and maintenance. Culvert repairs and installations have began. We've been involved with the tree and brush clearing for the roads heading to the new 911 towers in New Lebanon and Gallatin, and assisting Jolene and Colaruso's with pavement milling at the solid waste transfer stations for their paving projects. Personnel, one motor equipment operator has resigned, 2 employees out on extended medical leave, and 1 employee out on workers' comp. And resolution requests. I have the CHIPS numbers. I had them in next month's agenda because I didn't have it in time for this month's. But if you wanted me to discuss those tonight, Ron, I can, or we can wait till next month when I have a clear idea on my rollover from last year. I'll leave that up to you.
Yeah, if you just want to tell everybody what we've got, because you're spending some of it, so, you know.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
Yep. DOT came out with the numbers last week. CHIPS, just CHIPS alone is 2,222,639.65. Paved New York, 629,190.18. Extreme winter recovery, 384,997.44. Those are the same amounts that they put in last year. Then when they upped the numbers last year, there was some talk about those numbers going up again this year, but I think they pretty much copied the budget from last year and kept those numbers the same. However, they did add the POP or Pave Our Potholes numbers in there, and that's $419,460.12. The parameters of that program are pretty much the same as Pave New York, and I believe that number is pretty close to what the old Pave New York number used to be. So that's an additional program above and beyond those other 3 that are in place. And again, it's, reconstruction, overlays, pretty much anything that Pave New York or CHIPS can be used for, the Pave Our Potholes can be used for. I do believe I have $506,408.21 in rollover from last year. That number has not been confirmed because we have not yet received the new latest letter from DOT, which gives us our amounts and then whatever we had left from last year. But based on what we spent last year, we should have about $506,000 left. So with the CHIP program alone, without the rollover, that's $3,656,287.39, and then with the rollover, we have a total of $4,162,695.60. So not too far off from where we were last year. Last year we were at 4.7 million with the rollover from the year before. So we're in pretty good shape. Some things, one thing we do have to keep in mind there are projects that we can't do out of this. So we need to figure out a way if and when some of those pop up. I could do them out of the CHIPS, but you may not get reimbursed for it. So anything that does pop up that's outside of CHIPS that we need to take care of, I can discuss with Ray or Ron or Jim or whoever needs to be, and we'll just have to figure out where that is going to come out of. We've already had some instances where some guide rail repairs had to be made. And some culvert pipes that were outside of CHIPS that had to be replaced. Again, some of that stuff doesn't fall underneath the CHIPS program. So even if we put in for it, there's always that risk that you're not going to get reimbursed. It's not a large amount as of right now, but just something to keep in mind. That's basically it on the numbers. We do have a couple big projects that are starting. Next week, we start shoulder reconstruction down on County 15 in Taconic. Shortly after that, there will be some single course chip sealing going on, County 6 and County 15. And then County 9, between Ghent and Chatham, will be getting hot in place, recycled, and paved. County 8 in Gallatin, that's going to be getting hot in place, recycled, and paved. And then County 12 is going to be getting paved as well. So those projects are all ready to go. And like I said, you'll be seeing those start within the next couple of weeks. Any questions on any of the chip stuff or?
Can you repeat the POP number?
419-460-12.
Beautiful. I just had a question that's kind of irrespective of, your report, but, and I'm sorry for harping on the vents in the roof at your highway garage, but whenever I see a hole in the roof, I'm like, can we do it elsewhere? I just wanted to see if you're satisfied with the ventilation and whatever's going on in your own complex, just, to retain all those features with a new roof.
Yeah, I have to assume the vents you're looking at are probably the ones in the garage portion itself. They have the drop down hoses that hook to the exhaust, and I believe that's where those go. To my knowledge, we don't have any real issues in that area with exhaust. The other side of the garage where the trucks park, we got some big ventilation fans. A couple of those are mounted in the walls, so that vent out to the sides. To my knowledge, we don't have any real issues in there.
Well, good. I just wanted your input while they're putting a new roof in it.
Yep.
Might as well ask the landlord what he thinks of it, right?
right. Yep.
All right. Thanks, Tony.
Yep. You're welcome. All right. We'll move on to resolutions.
Yep.
All right. The first resolution request is authorization to fill one vacant budgeted position of motor equipment operator 1 in the highway department at the 2022 grade 12B step 1 salary of $39,168. And that's due to a resignation.
Move it. No, or second it.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Next is authorization to purchase two 2023 Western Star 49X dump trucks with plow equipment off of Onondaga County Purchasing Contract 8996 from Tracy Road Equipment, Albany, New York. One of those at a cost of $282,324, and the other at a cost of $309,324. And I believe we talked last month, the difference in those costs had to do with the cost difference in the plow equipment. We had plow equipment that we bought last year for the truck that was canceled. Zwax is honoring that price. The equipment for this year is about $20,000 more, give or take. So that's the reason for the difference in those prices. Total cost for both, including any potential cost increases, not to exceed $631,648. To be paid for with funds out of the CHIPS line, and the balance in that line is currently $2,222,639. Next month, I will have a resolution to be increasing that now that we have the additional money that's come in from the state. So, but what I did for the increases on those two trucks, I basically took the cost of Stuyvesant's truck last year and kind of seen where that was at compared to where the cab and chassis are for this year's trucks. And it was about $20,000 difference. I'm optimistic that you're not going to see a $20,000 jump between now and the time these trucks come in, but you never know. They did, last time we talked to them, say cab and chassis were about a year out once you order them. So I tried to cover that. And that all goes back to what we talked about last month, putting a max in there. And so that if they do go up $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 between now and then, we don't have to do another resolution and hold up the process even further.
Did these have extended warranty? Did you get an extended warranty at all with these?
Yeah, they come with, I have all that information.
Yeah, that's okay. I just wanted to know if you
Yeah,
did.
yeah, they come with the warranties. Yep.
Extended. I mean, did we get extended or we're just dealing with the base warranty? That's what I meant.
I believe we generally do the base warranty.
I was just wondering what the extended would cost.
Yeah.
Worth it.
And then I can check into that for you. This is the first time we've dealt with anything other than international.
Right.
So it's all kind of new to us. I'm looking at it right now. It looks like 5-year, $100,000 extended engine warranty, 5-year, 100,000 mile extended after treatment warranty, 5-year extended towing warranty, and 5-year extended warranty on the Allison transmission.
It would be $100,000 to replace the powertrain in that.
Yeah. So that's the standard warranty that comes with it, or is that the extra warranty?
It says extended engine warranty in the quote, so I'm not sure which quote he gave us.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking at the quote right now from Tracy.
So we're getting that. That's what I meant.
Yes. Yep. That's what in the quote itself. Yep.
All right.
Better put theft on it so I don't Shanghai it when it's coming on its way through from Zwax.
We got to remember that with the towing though, because 5 years is pretty good.
Oh, was that my inner voice speaking? I'm sorry. I'll move it.
Second it. Holmes.
Motion and a second, all in favor.
Aye.
Am I right, Tony? We probably won't see these till next year.
Yeah, I mean, unless things change, I'm assuming they're being conservative when they tell us a year out, but who knows?
Okay.
Maybe the world will be better tomorrow. You never know.
You never know.
But
Yeah.
we're planning on a year out, unfortunately. Next one's authorization to purchase one 2022 Ford F-350 Super Cab diesel with plow equipment from Metro Ford of Schenectady off of New York State OGS mini bid 9723 for a cost not to exceed $70,000. This purchase will be paid for with funds out of the vehicular equipment line, and the balance in that budget is $500,000.
Yeah, Tony, it's Jim. I just want to remind everybody that there's an extra $250,000 in that budget line this year, and it's ARPA funds that was put in the 22 budget.
Mhm.
So generally that line's about 250. There's another 250
Right.
at ARPA to increase that line.
Right.
Yeah, that was for the vehicles we're waiting for, correct, Jim?
Yeah. The
Yeah.
back.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that the other day. The cost of the truck itself actually came at $67,176.56. That was the bid on OGS. We added a little bit in there just to try and cover it. I didn't add a whole lot to it. I don't foresee it going up that much. And I think
Sander, right? There's no Sander. on it.
No, this is Foreman's truck.
Okay.
Yep. We already have Sanders for those. We have the small Sanders that slide in the back. So we just take it from the old truck to the new truck.
Move it.
I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor.
Aye.
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 Thank you.
And the final one is authorization to purchase one 2022 Case 621G wheel loader with brooms and forks off of OGS contract PC 69383 at a cost not to exceed $168,410 after trade-in. Be purchased with funds from the vehicular equipment line, and the balance in that budget minus the last one would be $430, not including the money that was put in from last year.
What kind of money we get for the trade on the old one?
We got 35.5 on the old one.
Okay. How many hours was on that old one? Do you know?
That I don't have that on here. I thought I put that all the information for the questions you were going to ask, but apparently
That's
I
all right.
didn't.
It's okay. That's
It's
all right.
probably on my desk.
What is the auction market for that right now? Like, could we potentially get a lot more auctioning it off as opposed to trading it in, or is it a safe bet just to?
Yeah, that I don't know. I don't know.
Sometimes these dealers have been paying pretty good money, though. I got to tell you, in the auctions, because people want them. You know what I mean? That's just.
Oh shit! So Mouse off came over while you were out on the bus.
Yeah. Regarding the water and sewer, we've been doing our weekly checks for the sewer line, making sure everything's staying running and checking on everything. And then we recently installed a lot of remote water readings for the flow, to build them out there. But we're having issues because we're not reading them right. So I got a rep coming, and eventually we'll get down there and get it straightened away. And then out at the airport, we had 2 trees fall down on our fence, and it did some damage. So we had a company come out and remove the trees because it was in a bad location. And then I'm just waiting on getting the estimates for repairing the fence. And I believe that came to just under 5,000. So we're going to try to push it the rest through the insurance. Correct, Jim?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So that's what we're waiting. I'm just waiting on getting the estimates for the fence now. And that's pretty much, the past month.
Brian, did you ever get that? Were you gonna do a truck bed or something? Did you ever get that in?
Yeah, we finally did. Yep.
Okay.
So I think it was, I think we got it right around the end of January. So
Really?
or like the end of January, early February. So it was, I think it was probably about 4 to 6 weeks, a little late on that part, but it's sitting out at the Kinderhook. But we didn't want to do it yet because we had to have that truck as our spare
Right.
plow. So now we're in the process of getting it moving forward. So
Good. Okay.
Are there any other questions for Brian?
Did a nice job in chambers, Brian. Look good in there.
Yes.
yeah, I gotta say, and that's kudos to Kelly there. She's the one that helped pick those colors. So
Looks good. Good. TVs are nice. Got to
There's
fix the
work
one
and
TV
everything.
though.
Well,
Got one more- that one TV's got to be fixed.
yeah.
And what MIS is going to put in some Dolby surround for us?
We're working on the sound system.
All right, up next we have Jolene with solid waste.
Okay, so projects that we're working on, the public comment period ended for the solid waste master plan, and we are working with B&L currently to address the comments and make any changes to the document. Once we have that completed, and we hope to for the next committee meeting, the Board of Supervisors will be asked to adopt the plan, and we will submit it to DEC, provided upon their review that there are no additional suggestions or comments. The plan will be good for the next 10 years. Ray is going to go over our top load building update. The food scrap program has been going extremely well. The department is currently working with 2 local farmers. One is located down in the Livingston, Germantown area, the other one in Kinderhook. So we are diverting some of the food scraps directly to them. The rest of them are going to GrowMax. So the collection bins were placed out at all the stations on April 9th with the educational materials. And we'd like to really give a huge thank you to the Climate Smart communities, as they did a great job in assisting us with promoting the program through their newsletters, emails, and their Earth Day events. So a huge shout out to them. Next Saturday will be our Household Hazardous Waste Day event at the County Highway Garage on 23B. The collection will be between 8 and 12. This year, again, we will be accepting latex paints for the first time and coordinating with Paint Care. I just recently found out that the Paint Care program actually takes effect May 1st. So we will be the first in the state to participate in this program on the 7th. So fingers crossed it all goes well. Upgrades to the station. The bid packages went out for the compactors. They should be back on May 5th. The first bid that went out, we didn't receive any bids back due to supply chain issues and time restraints from the vendor. The Climate Carnival, the one-day celebration at the fairgrounds, will be held on July 16th from 10 to 4. We're still looking for vendors to participate. This is free to the public and free to the vendors. So if you follow the link on our Columbia County website, there's an application form. And if you know of any vendors or any towns that want to participate, we would love to have you. Resolution request. I have 2 before the committee. The first one is to authorization to create and fill one full-time labor position in the solid waste department. Whereas this position is now needed due to the increased workload that we have, and we'll be using the current budgeted vacant bookkeeper's position funds for this position. We originally had thought when we did this resolution that we would be able to fill the position by the end of this year. But due to the fact that we don't have office space currently and there isn't a viable list, we're going to hold off. So the laborer's position right now is more important.
I'll move it.
Second.
I'm free till 1 o'clock on Thursday.
You waiting for a second? I'll second it.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. And the second resolution that I have is authorization to purchase one 2024 Western Star 47X setback axle truck from the Onondaga County Purchasing Contract 8996 from Tracy Road Equipment. The vehicle cost of $109,870,000, not to exceed the potential cost increase of $129,870. And we do have the funds currently in our .2 line item. The budget line currently is $285,000. And it's going to be replacing as 9 International, which will sell at auction.
I'll move it.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and that's all I have unless somebody has questions.
It's nice to see you, Jolene.
Good to see you, Kath.
They will see you in person. All right, and we're on to engineering. Ray, you can take it away.
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. So starting off with our federal aid highway projects. So back on September 9th, had a informational meeting out at the town of Copake that was attended both virtually and in person. A total of 50 folks had attended that meeting to go over the proposed project for reconstruction of 7A through that Hamlin area. I believe that everything went generally very well as far as its reception to the public. I know there's still some concerns with respect to how parking will be dealt with and surface drainage and so forth, but all in all, I think it went very well. County Road 18, the Fish and Game project. So Fish and Game Road, we received 3 bids on April 5th. Colarusso and Sons was the lowest apparent low bidder at $5,069,887.20. That is above the allotted amount that's provided for in the STIP as far as the federal funding. I've had discussions with New York State Department of Transportation as well as the chairman of the CTAC committee. DOT is willing to move some money around because the Copake project, based on information we received from the design engineer, that project's going to be delayed from 2023 to 2024. So that'll free up some money. So we'll be able to use some of that money from the 2003 timeframe and place that towards Fish and Game Road. DOT was okay with that. We need to have a formal Columbia County Transportation Advisory Committee, which is scheduled for tomorrow, in order for the advisory committee to approve that recommendation. Once that's done, then DOT will modify the STIP for the funding.
Is that tomorrow or Thursday? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
I'm sorry, my apologies, Thursday. I keep trying to jump ahead. I did the same thing this morning, so my apologies. That is Thursday. And I have a resolution regarding that as well later on. For our Bridge of New York program, Valley View over Bash Bish, the consultant has finished up their design. They've also prepared their final engineer's estimate. The total engineer's estimate for the project is coming in at roughly 2.2 million, which is over the allotted amount, again, for the project as a whole, for construction costs, I should say. So one of the things that we're actually looking to do was to consider options. The consultant had identified that the project was to be undertaken as a multi-phase project, so therefore always providing one lane open on the bridge while the bridge was being constructed. So that way it provided access to the park, New York State Parks facility and the cabins that are there. And they had indicated that that's actually could run or could increase the cost by about $300,000. So I had a meeting with some of the stakeholders in the area, the residents, and had a virtual meeting. Supervisor Metler was part of that as well. And so there's quite a bit of pushback with respect to that concept about closing that bridge down completely and providing a detour around. There's safety concerns and so forth, utilizing the existing town road. So I've taken under advisement from the stakeholders as far as the parks, as well as the residents, as well as business owners in that area. And we're going to continue to work with DOT to see if we can try to find funding for that project. That is one of the items that will also be brought up during the meeting with the Columbia County Transportation Advisory Committee. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
can I just jump in there?
Yep.
Yeah. So first, I want to thank Ray for, well, first of all, for the Hamlet meeting, which took place on April 9th. And I think he's being conservative in his assessment. I thought that the people who came to that meeting, and I think he's also conservative in the number because we had about 50 in the room plus another 30 virtually. I thought it was very successful, and almost to a person, I've found a lot of support for the project as proposed by the county. So I was very pleased with that. And I know that we're still in a comment period, and we appreciate that as well. With regard to the Bash Bish situation, that was not quite as smooth. And Ray and I have talked about that. I will admit that I also went into that meeting thinking that it was a reasonable proposal to save both time and money to close down the bridge. And I was quickly corrected by the residents of my town that was not at all feasible. They raised some really good points, some things that I hadn't thought of. And there were also some people who along the way, I think, had changed their opinion, Ray. At any rate, we really appreciate the fact that Ray had that stakeholders meeting. I personally appreciate the fact that I think he's going to try to do something different in terms of going forward on this project. And I know that those people certainly appreciate being heard. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's important. Again, we need to explore all the options. Again, we're seeing, as I've mentioned before, and I think the other department heads have also identified, construction costs, equipment costs are all going sky high. So we need to leave no stone unturned when we're considering options towards projects to see where we may be able to save money. So to that end, again, I will bring it up during the Columbia County Transportation Advisory Committee meeting. As a matter of fact, I actually have a call into Linda Cooper. She's the regional director for Office of Parks in this area. And I hope to connect with her today. Her and I played a little telephone tag today. But I will keep you, the committee, informed as that moves forward. Other engineering activities, the Commerce wastewater conveyance system. So New York State Department of Environmental Conservation came to the site. They inspected the site, saw that all the work had been completed. They were very happy that after as many years as they've been dealing with the site, that they don't have to worry about the wastewater treatment facility anymore. They were glad to see the project actually move towards completion. So they've made a request that I provide a formal correspondence to their office. Number one, requesting that the order on consent that was issued be lifted now that all the construction is completed and the conveyance is completed as well, and wastewater is heading to Greenport. And then also within that correspondence is a request to do away with both Speedy's permits, one at the Commerce Center for the old wastewater plant and one for the sand filter that used to be at the airport, because obviously we'll no longer discharging to the surface, so those won't be needed. So I'll be preparing that information. Also related to the wastewater facility has to do with the Ghent Rehabilitation Center. So this has been an ongoing issue with respect to the installation of a grinder. I believe last month I had indicated that we were waiting for information from the Ghent Rehabilitation, their attorneys, which we've received. Rob Fitzsimmons received correspondence earlier this month from their attorney that has outlined a proposed schedule that indicates that as soon as we accept the schedule, as soon as the county accepts the schedule, they anticipate that they'll have the grinder installed within 110 days from the county acceptance. And that also includes not only the grinder for the main facility, but also what's known as a bar rack for the facility to the rear as well. So both of those will be done. So I don't need a formal resolution, but I was hoping to at least obtain concurrence from the committee on this. One of the items that I have requested that Rob Fitzsimmons place within his correspondence and reply back to Gantt Rehab's attorney is a stipulation indicating that in the interim, in this 110-day interim period, that if there are any clogs or any repairs that are needed to our pumps due to rags and things of that nature, that those be recouped by the county and that Gantt Rehab pay for those repairs. In addition to that, they've provided for a few interim timeframes within the schedule that they've provided as far as when they're going to order materials, when they're going to start installation and so forth. And I've also requested that Rob Fitzsimmons provide a stipulation that if any one of those timeframes is missed, that the county impose a fine as per the local law that was passed at the end of last year. So.
Well, that's a really good job then, because that's what we needed to have done, right?
Right.
Yep.
Yes, Supervisor Eldridge.
My question is, with regards to the fine, and if the time frame isn't kept up, would that fall under the inability to obtain equipment that they needed to put this thing together, or would that be?
So they've already gone ahead and they've already contacted the vendors. They already have their quotes. They are ready to sign on the dotted line. And they
Okay.
have taken into consideration the supply chain issues. And that's one of the reasons that it's actually spread out to 110 days.
Okay, thank you, Ray.
So as long as I can get a concurrence from the committee, then I'll be able to get back to Rob and Rob can provide his response.
You know you have it from me. Thank you.
I agree with Jimmy. That's a good move in the right direction.
Mhm.
You got it for me, as you know. Great job. Yep.
I concur. Do you need a motion to hold the tenant responsible for any interruptions?
No, according to Rob, he said I didn't need a formal resolution or anything like that. Just needed to obviously bring the board, or excuse me, bring the committee up to speed as far as what was taking place and just making them aware of what we were agreeing to as far as the schedule, the 100.
Is there anybody in opposition of it? Otherwise, I'll say that it passed the committee. Okay, thanks.
Way to cut to the chase, Kelly.
Yeah.
Thank you. Kent Transfer Station. So the top load building is under construction. Contractor's gone ahead and he's completed the pour of the foundation. Concrete breaks are all coming back fine. Compaction tests are all coming back fine as far as his work. And materials are on site for all of his framing, and he's beginning framing of the building. So all of that is working out well. There's one item before I get to my resolution requests. My apologies, I didn't have it onto my agenda, but this has to do with the soil and water building. So the soil and water building is a county-owned building that currently has a lease, or excuse me, it had a lease with the USDA, and that lease is almost 22 years old. And USDA would like to re-up the lease. However, they will not be able to just re-up it. They'll actually have to create a brand new lease for another 20-year term. Obviously, there'll be stipulations in there as far as escalators, so on and so forth. But they want to know at least if the county remains interested in leasing that space to the USDA.
How's the building there? I know you brought it up a little bit, but is the building still in pretty good shape? I know we talked about it earlier.
Yeah, the building's actually not in bad shape overall. However, USDA has indicated that based on COVID and things that they've learned through COVID, as far as HVAC systems and things of that nature, filtration, they are going to want improvements to be made to the building. Number one, for overall building systems, HVAC, as well as some improvements based on their marketing that they're doing. And in both cases, they indicated that those costs can be placed and included into calculations associated with the lease. Okay, so they are proposing that if the county move forward and is interested, that they will prepare a draft RFP, send it to the county so the county can reply. And again, the county can provide those costs within the lease. cover
Is
that.
anything else go on in that building? They rent the whole building, correct, Ray?
Correct. Yeah.
Soil
Soil and water. Yeah. So I mean, it's USDA. Soil and water is
Soil
under
and-
that, but basically it's soil and water that's within that space.
We couldn't sell them that building then, right? It doesn't work like that.
Actually, the feds prefer renting.
Okay.
They prefer
I was just
renting.
wondering, I mean, how we come out? Did break even kind of deal?
Oh, as
or-
far as in the past?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that that we have. But again, we'll have to adjust all those numbers and those rental prices accordingly based on whatever their requests are going to be as far as improvements.
Well, let's look at it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no,
Soil and water is a county department.
correct.
Right.
Okay. All right.
So, but my recommendation is that that the county consider it, because again, we just would need to reply to the RFP that they're putting out.
Right.
Those, again, for that, I just need the concurrence of the committee. So as long as there's no one against it.
We certainly want to explore it. I mean, I'd like to have a conversation further with Ryan and Timmy and Donnell. I know I've heard from our agricultural community here in Stuyvesant on the importance of kind of have that agency located within the county. And a couple of years ago, there was some consolidations, I do believe. And I'm not sure I'm fully up to speed with that, but I'll give you guys a call tomorrow and we'll just chat about some of those details. But yeah, we certainly should explore it at least. But on the other hand, there should be escalation clauses in there if they're going to ask for further repairs that we get covered for them too. So.
Well, are we charging a fair rent if it's 20, 22, 23 years? I mean,
We need to increase.
We need to up it. Yeah.
That's what I'm asking.
not just to include the HVAC upgrade.
Oh, no.
but-
Overall, no, overall, we need to increase it to bring it up to more current.
Competitive numbers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So other than that, resolutions, unless the supervisors have any other questions. So the first resolution is requesting authorization by the chairman of the Columbia County Board of Supervisors to execute a contract for the reconstruction of County Route 18 Fishing Game Road to the responsible low bidder of A. Colarusso and Sons of Hudson in the amount of $5,069,887.20. And again, that was a budgeted project that is federally funded 80%, 15.5. And this resolution is also pending the approval of the STIP and TIP modification by the Transportation Advisory Committee, as well as New York State Department of Transportation.
I'll move that.
I'll second it.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Quick 5 million or somebody else's money.
Yeah. Second resolution is resolution, again, requesting authorization for the chairman to execute a consultants agreement for the Columbia County Airport Terminal Apron Rehabilitation Design with Pacero Associates of Rochester, New York, in the amount of $66,089. And this particular project has already received federal FAA approval as far as the grant amount. So again, grant funding is in the amount of 95.5. So our share is only 5% of the entire total, and it was budgeted.
Move it.
I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved.
The third item is a request as far as a funding agreement modification with New York State EFC. So that's Environmental Facilities Corporation. They're the funding arm, EC, for the sewer project. So we're wrapping up the sewer project now. We still are under contract with the contractor, still holding retainage on the project as a whole. During the construction, it was identified that the Grandinetti pump station could use an upgrade as well. We did not include it, or CPL did not include it, Morris did not include it prior to them as far as the modification to Grandinetti, because we were very cognizant of overall cost and we were trying to reduce the cost as much as possible. The overall project is well under the funding limit that EFC had provided. EFC has come out, they've looked at the site, and they feel that it is eligible. So they are requesting a formal request by the county to seek the additional funds in the amount of $295,000 for the replacement of that existing pump station. And I just want to let everyone know as well that this pump station is could become critical because if that site adjacent to the fire training center gets developed, the one that the county's interested in, that would be discharging into this pump station.
How old is it, Ray? How old is the pump station?
That was from the original construction. So that dates back to 1992, 1991, 92 timeframe.
And it would be the only one along the way right now that doesn't have a generator to it.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so it's been ailing, quite honestly, and it does not have a backup generator.
All right, I'll move it.
Thank you.
I'll second it. We got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Next one is a fund transfer from professional service to miscellaneous supplies. And since we're not using as many outside professional services, and we're trying to handle some additional work in-house as far as the engineering department, I'm requesting the transfer to allow the purchase of a new AutoCAD license, 1 seat for that. And that's an annual fee that we have to pay. And then also to replace a 30-year-old construction survey level for laying out projects and running topography and so forth for some of the projects that we're involved with. And then in addition to that, the purchase of 3 traffic counters. The traffic counters were approved back in 2021 as part of the 2022 budget, but the costs have risen, so I wanted to make the adjustment. So that's the use of those proposed funds as far as the transfer.
How much are we talking? Do you know? Do you have a number on it?
Yeah, can you scroll down a little more, Kelly? We just can't see the amount. There it is. Yep.
Oh, okay.
So we're just moving $1,000 from one account into the
Yeah,
other.
yeah. I'll move that.
I'll second it.
We got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
You saved him out.
I knew I should have asked her more. The last item has to do with a task order agreement. So this task order agreement is associated with the DPW garage and the installation of the solar panels on the garage, as well as the replacement of the roof as part of that project. So the way that I've worded this request is based on the total project cost shall not exceed $833,515 on this particular project. And that the combined cost of the DPW garage, as well as the 560 Warren Street and North 6th Street project, not to exceed a total of $2,750,000. Now, this project is budgeted in addition to utilizing $750,000 in ARPA funds that were allocated for the project as a whole. And the reason I worded it that way was, again, we knew that we had a target budget of $2,750,000 overall. It was just the fact of whether, if there is an overrun on one project, that we have a combined total. So if one project is under, the other is slightly over, but we're still well under, or that we still maintain underneath that cap of $2,750,000.
Ray,
You've reviewed all the engineering proposals and you're comfortable with everything you've seen?
Yeah, actually, they did make a change from when we previously had discussed the project here at 23 at the highway garage. They were going to try a different type of roofing, which I really wasn't crazy about. It was an overlay. This is a rip and replace. So I have used this material in the past as far as the membrane type of roofing that they're doing. So I'm satisfied with that. And they've also provided information and cut sheets on the various components of the solar array, as well as the inverters and so forth. So yes, I'm satisfied with their with what they're proposing and what they're outlining as their scope. Yes, Supervisor Guzzi.
yeah, actually, you answered my question. That's what.
Okay.
I'll take the plunge and move it.
We got a motion. Do we have a second?
Eldred, second.
Motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
And that's it for engineering.
Thank you, Ray.
Yeah, absolutely.
Under engineering, Ray, we didn't really talk about it, but I wanted to share with the committee, we did have to lower the weight limit to the Stuyvesant Falls Bridge over County Route 25A. And we're not proposing to do anything today, but on behalf of my town board, I have written the committee a letter, which I'll get out to you in the next day or so once they all approve it. But we got quite a pushback here locally from the fire companies and stuff on that because they feel the county should be taking quicker action on that. And it is something that we're looking at federal aid money to do in a long-term project. We'll have more for you, Ray. We'll have more for you in the near future, but the question is, do we spend some money on it short term to get it back to the weight limit again? And I think it's something we need to consider. But so I wrote up some facts on it to show everybody the importance of that bridge here locally to the town of Stuyvesant. And that's not coming from me as chairman. That's just coming as town supervisor. You know? So I'll get that letter out to you, and we can talk more on that in the future.
We do have.
Yep.
I'm sorry, my apologies. I did have that on the agenda. So we did lower it to 12 tons, but as Supervisor Knight had indicated, I'll have an outline of a proposed plan of action for that bridge, as well as timeframes for the May meeting on how we're going to try to deal with that.
What was the initial limit?
Excuse me?
What was the initial weight limit?
Oh, well, it didn't have a weight limit on it. It was unposted, which meant any vehicle could go over it. Back in 2015, there was a 12-ton weight limit on it for a while repairs had to be done. And so this is just an old bridge that continues to creep up with issues based on its condition. So again, we're back where we were in 2015. And as Supervisor Knight had indicated, that it is eligible for federal funding. It is on the New York State DOT STIP list for improvements, but those improvements are not anticipated to occur until 2025. So what I'm proposing to do is to solicit statements of qualifications from engineers to deal with the short-term fix and then roll into evaluating what the options are as far as either repairing or replacing that bridge. But I'll lay that out for the May meeting for everyone.
All right, I see Kelly has a resolution here for the use of gazebo at the park.
It's an application to use a gazebo for an hour from Overcomers Ministry, and it's for May 5th. They were looking to use it from 12 noon to 1 p.m. But it is a day during the week. So they said if during the business hours didn't work, they would do 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. So I didn't know with court going on if the noon to acceptable or if the 5 to 6 is acceptable.
Well, that would be kind of more of a question for OCA. Has we contacted anybody at OCA to see if it bothers them?
We have not. I would assume the 5 to 6 would probably be the best bet. That way, traffic wise, and because it is tough parking there when court is in session.
If they'll go for that, I think we could approve that tonight. We've approved these in the past on weekends and things. But.
Hey, Kelly, I'm meeting with Dave tomorrow, first thing in the morning. I can bring that up. It's up to you if you want me to push for the after hours or if you want me to ask during.
It's really up to the committee. I would assume that the noon to 1 could cause a problem, but that's up to the committee. If they just want to approve the 5 to 6, that's fine.
I'll make a motion to approve it 5 to 6.
I'll second that.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And there's no special needs, so they're looking at about 30. The minimum of 30 people are, less than 100, she said. So they're looking at about 30 they're expecting.
So 5 or 6 o'clock is much better.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll let Reverend Singletary know. Thank you.
Okay, is there anything else to come before Public Works today?
I just want to thank Ray for that presentation at the 4 p.m. meeting on the buildings. It was nice to get that education, and also thank him for his contribution to the rest of it. He's been a fantastic addition to the county.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind words. A lot of work ahead of us.
I agree, yep. And I am glad to have Ray on board. I got to say, working with Centrica has been a pleasure. Working with their engineers, I think they do a pretty thorough job. But when they come back with some of these things, it's just good to have Ray at the table to ask questions and review the things that they're giving us rather than me just making decisions. So I'm happy to have him around. Another thing, Ray, on that, as we went through the buildings, the annex building behind the courthouse, I actually have a feasibility study that we did on that. So we were going to rehab that into office space at one time, and we had Crawford do a study on that, and it came in at like $1 million for 2,500 square feet, and we just kind of dropped the ball. But I will find that study and get it to you because that had some useful information. Some of that is, as you know, that's another historic building, and as soon as you touch it, it just opened a can of worms, and it's not that it's a small 2-story building, and you had to have an elevator to get there, and
Didn't it have asbestos, Ron? Did we
Yeah.
mitigate the
I
asbestos?
I was going to say, I recall that there was some asbestos testing that was done when we were doing the courthouse. and
It
I
was
thought-
quite a bit of money, I thought.
Yeah, it was a lot of money, so we just kind of dropped that one. But I do have the information that I should get to you because,
Yes, please do. Yeah, all of that is very useful. So yeah, by all means, if you can find it, I'd appreciate that.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, if nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Good
night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Folks.